I want to welcome you to the Retro Rogues Live. Please pay attention to our warning graphic. It states that the Retro Rogues Live show is intended for an adult audience and not intended for children under the age of 13. Parental discretion is advised. Again, I want to welcome you to the show. On tonight's show, be honest, Eric and I were talking about other things, and I kind of missed the. We were going to go over everything, but I know that I'm going to be. And I'll be honest with you, Eric, I'm thinking about changing it up and maybe drawing Mary Jane instead of Spider-Man. But anyhow, we'll see where we get there. But I'm going to do a
Okay.
live drawing. I'm going to do a live drawing on tonight's show. Um, and I'm curious how many people will be watching us tonight because I know Spider-Man is out in theaters, and I know quite a few people who are going to be going actually to probably see it this evening. Um, but anyhow, we're still here for those of you who are not going to go see Spider-Man tonight. We are here for you. Please comment from wherever you are. We definitely want to talk to you. My name is Dave Beatty. I'm one of your hosts. For nearly the last 30 years, I've been a professional illustrator and graphic designer. Worked on a lot of fun things that some people have heard of, such as Batman Incorporated, Justice League of America, and even Superboy and Legion of Superheroes. But enough about that. I want to welcome back, as always, my great co-host. This is Mr. Eric Alexander. Eric, please tell the folks who'll be watching or listening at home some of the fun things you have worked on as a creative professional.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Eric Alexander, also known as Bass God 14. That's Bass God 14. Bass God like a bass guitar. And I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Bad Bob Productions, which is a production company, a film production company located in Arizona. Currently, I'm the executive producer on a film called Staycation, which has been filming primarily on location California, but all over the world via Zoom.
Very cool. Very cool. So it looks like Jane is in the house. Hi, Mom. Jane
Hey,
is in the
Jane.
Rogues Gallery. Um, I'll be honest here. I don't. We didn't really talk about.
Yeah,
what,
as Dave mentioned, we kind of started going off on a
yeah.
completely unrelated topic that we are not going to be talking about tonight
Nope.
on the air.
Nope.
But in the description, I had put the Spider-Man live draw, which I guess Dave, you might be changing it last minute to Mary Jane. This is, of course, in honor of Spider-Man: No Way Home coming out today. We know that is the big news right now. In fact,
Yep.
it seems to me in a lot of ways. Most people are deliberately not releasing much of anything today because they know Spider-Man: No Way Home is going to be the big thing. That's what's trending on Twitter, or was trending on Twitter. So I mean, that's what everybody's on everybody's mind. So we're definitely going to go with the flow on that. And Dave, you're going to have to make that decision in the next minute or so. Decide what we're going to
I
draw
think.
here, what it's going to be,
I,
or what you're going to draw, I should say, Spider-Man or
yeah.
Mary Jane. And then
I think. I think we'll do Mary Jane because it'll be more fun. I think.
okay, so going to be Mary Jane. So we're doing that obviously in honor of Spider-Man: No Way Home. I have not seen the film yet. I am hoping to see it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see it even this weekend. I still haven't seen Ghostbusters Afterlife, and that kills me because I really want to see that one too. But I am very curious about people's thoughts towards the film. The early things that I'm hearing are very positive. Of course, a lot of it sometimes does reek of chillism, where it's a little too much. Like, oh, this is the best comic book movie ever. Yeah, I don't doubt that. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I am hearing good things. Cynical me, I always wonder, what where people are coming from. But I have been hearing good things. I'm actually waiting on some people that I really, that I respect or like their opinions, or their opinions tend to align with mine most of the time, to see what they say, because a lot of them are literally watching it tonight. So we know that that's going on. A lot of you are probably not here because you're watching the movie. And always consider checking us out on the flip side, on the replay, because you can always check us out later, and you can always comment. If you don't have to, you can always comment on the show later. Whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, any of those formats, you can always comment afterwards. If you went and saw it, you can let us know, yay or nay. Did you like it? Because I would love to know people's opinions, especially if they have seen it, whether they liked it or not. No spoilers, please. We don't want spoilers, especially. I personally don't want spoilers because I haven't seen the movie yet. But I definitely want to know what people's thoughts are if they've seen the film. We also are going to be talking a little bit. We haven't done Collector's Corner in a long time, so I'm actually going to do a little bit of show and tell. I have a couple pickups that I've been actually sitting on. I've actually got them sort of piecemeal over the last couple of weeks. And because our shows have been real busy lately, I haven't had a chance to show any of this stuff. So I'm going to show some of my recent Kenner Marvel Legends pickups that I've done. So I'll be showing those live on the air. And then I did want to touch on an old story that we never really were able to get back to because there was some follow up on it. Dave, you and I had talked about Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer film, and we had talked about that weeks and weeks ago, and it might even be months ago at this point. And there's been some follow up to that. I think it's really interesting because of the spin that it was given. It's an older article, but I just never had the chance to get back to it. So I am going to talk about that tonight as well. I'm going to talk about this expectation that seems to be growing over Oppenheimer and whether Oppenheimer is somehow going to save Hollywood from all the genre films. You know what I mean? So, because that narrative seems to be coming back again and again in different ways. We do have a few other folks that have popped up in the Rogues Gallery. Hollywood Jackson's in the house. He says, "Hey guys, hi Miss Jane." And then out there in YouTube land, we've got Jacob Symbiote Barton, who we just usually normally just call Jacob. He says, "Good evening on this Thursday night." Jacob, thank you for joining us. And I saw you on Twitter. This is a new I think this is your new profile picture, Jacob, because I saw your Twitter post and I love it. The Baby Yoda shirt. That is awesome. That is great. Totally dig it, Jacob.
Good to see you, Jacob. All right, very cool.
All right, so do you want to get straight into this drawing?
Yeah, I want to start drawing.
And as mentioned before, but some of you might be confused from the description. We are still going to be honoring Spider-Man No Way Home. We know that's what's on everybody's minds. But Dave had actually previously drawn Spider-Man on another episode. So he's gone ahead and decided that he's going to do Mary Jane. And so I'm very curious, Dave, of what version of Mary Jane you're going to be going with.
I'm going to do the classic redhead version. So
the classic version. I definitely dig the classic version. Actually, that's related to the Kenner Marvel Legends line. So I'm going to go ahead and go into a little bit of my show and tell, especially while Dave is sort of just preparing. That's the best time because that way I don't have to turn off Dave's camera very often, which is one of the things we're still working on with this new format where we're doing original art and things like that, is trying to make it so we don't have to take, Dave's drawing off so often. We're still kind of working with that whole format right now. But I'm going to be showing you some of this Kenner Marvel Legends stuff. So for those of you that don't know, we've had a segment on this show. In fact, the Thursday show was basically called Collector's Corner for a long time. I'm trying to get the graphic up right now. I think I'm having a little bit of a lag going on. It's because I did the wrong one. I did the background instead of the foreground. My apologies. Technical difficulties, folks. So we haven't done a Collector's Corner segment in quite a while. This is the old Collector's Corner banner. The Thursday shows were designated for primarily for Collector's Corner. We still did pop culture news. We still did some streaming wars stuff, as we still do to this day. But for a long time, that's what the show was. Now, of course, we're doing more original art, but this is essentially a Collector's Corner segment. So I wanted to bring up the banner again. So for folks that don't know, I've been really into this Kenner Marvel Legends line. And unlike a lot of folks who purchase most of their stuff online, I like the thrill of the hunt. I like to go out there. I primarily actually go to Target because I think for initially this stuff was Target exclusive. I know they're available at other places now, especially like GameStop. I think even Walmart has them now as well. And of course, you can order them online. And I've been really good as far as collecting Wave 1 and Wave 2. I think I've pretty much got every figure from Wave 1 and Wave 2, aside from the sort of like internet exclusives, if you will, which I think are now actually available in stores, which I call like Wave 0. Wave 3 has been really difficult for me to get. up until recently. And I do want to commend what they're doing over there at Hasbro because now I'm starting to see all these figures out, and I think it has everything to do with Christmas time, which is good. It's good that they have this stuff available at Christmas time because it's been very hard to find. And if any of you are collecting this line, I'd be curious what your experience has been as far as, you know, if you've been collecting the line, you're actually going to stores and looking for it, you know, what your experience has been with it as well. So for the longest time, and I think I showed this one previously, the only Wave 3 figure I had was this one, the Gray Hulk. And I do think I showed this on a previous episode. And actually to this day, this is the only Wave 3 figure that I have. The Wave 3, for some reason, especially at Target, that's primarily where I go, it was skipped. Like I would not see Wave 3 figures in the store. Now Wave 3 is all over the place. Now Wave 3 also includes, let's see, it includes Ant-Man. It includes, I believe, Bullseye. Bullseye actually might be in Wave 4 now that I think about it. I know it includes Vision. Vision is in Wave 3. The Invisible Woman from Fantastic Four, she's in Wave 3. There's quite a few figures in Wave 3. Each wave has like I think 7 to 8 figures, and some of them are reissues. Oh, Cyclops, who is in what I call like Wave 0. He was one of the releases on the internet. He's in Wave 3, and those figures were very, very difficult to find, at least for me, in stores until very recently. So this is the only Wave 3 figure I've had. And it's the only one I even saw in stores until recently, but now I'm seeing all of them. And I just haven't had the chance to buy all the other figures, unfortunately. But this is my only Wave 3. So what I have been collecting and what I was finding I thought was interesting was all of a sudden I saw these Wave 4 figures. And here's one I think you'll like, Dave, if you're able to take a look real quick. So I was able to pick up Silver Surfer.
Very cool.
And I was really surprised to actually see him. And now he's quite common in the Targets by me. There's like 3 different Targets in my area that I'll go to. He's actually quite common. What's neat about this figure, you can kind of see, is he actually comes with the board. A lot of these figures do not have accessories like the Gray Hulk here. You know, there's no accessories, although obviously he has a cool, unique mold. Although there is a Green Hulk as well. So they just took the Green Hulk and made him gray. But this one, you can see this actually comes with an accessory, which I think is really, really cool. So I really like this figure. I was really surprised when I saw it, you know, initially, because again, I was not seeing any Wave 3 and he is Wave 4. And Loki is another Wave 4 figure that I recently picked up. I really dig the classic artwork, you know, the comic style artwork. It's kind of funny to show this to my kids because my kids are like, that's Loki, you know, because they're used to the movie version, right? So they're kind of like it's almost unrecognizable to them, just because the film version of Loki is so very different. But I really dig it. I think that I love the artwork on these things, the classic artwork. They also have stuff on the back too. You know, they'll even have like a little quote and everything like that. I love the whole presentation. And these retail for like $10, $9.99 at most stores, which is another reason I like this line. And I do collect new stuff for the most part. I've gotten in this line. I got into the Mandalorian retro line, which I've also talked about in a previous episode. I showed when I got that one. That one I did mail order because I wanted the Cara Dune figure. But I don't do a lot of new stuff. In fact, you can even see just behind me there's quite a bit of clutter and stuff like that. Like I don't really need to be collecting more stuff, but occasionally I do. I like this line. This one's a real nice one, I think. This one was done really well. This is Storm. She's also from Wave 4 of this line, and I think this one is really nice. This is the classic Storm. I mean, this is Storm to me, you know, much more so than the movies are. I really love this design. I love the artwork on the card back, but just the figure itself, I think they did such a great job on. And I'll say it, you know, and it's also, you know, kind of sexy, kind of risque. So I definitely like it. Now, this last one that I picked up, I definitely want you to take a look at Dave. It is basically a repaint, but there it is. There is U.S. Agent. So, and
Very
this is the
cool.
last one I found. Actually, I just found this one recently. And again, they did issue a Captain America, so all they had to do was repaint it. But that's a no brainer, right? But a lot of lines won't necessarily do that no brainer. So I know this is a character you like a lot, Dave. So this is U.S. Agent. I think the paint came out pretty well, pretty good looking figure, and he's also another one that comes with an accessory, whereas so many of these other figures do not come with an accessory. So we haven't done Collector's Corner in a very long time, and like I said, I've actually been acquiring these figures almost like one at a time. I think two of them I did get together, but mostly I've been finding them one at a time. Up until recently, they were very, very hard. Uh, they're very hard to find out in the field, as I would say. Because I said, I go to Target to go to the store. To me, that's part of the fun of collecting, as opposed to just purchasing something online. Not saying that I won't do it. Not saying that I'm totally above it. I had to do it with in the situation with the Mandalorian because I really wanted to get that Cara Dune figure. I didn't feel like there was any other way I could guarantee I would get it. But I enjoy going to actual physical stores. So I really enjoyed that. And I'd be curious, any of you folks in the Rogues Gallery, if you're collecting right now, what you're collecting. Christmas time is right across, we've got one more episode right before Christmas. So it's like, hey, what do you guys want for Christmas this year? What are you asking for in the stocking stuffers and stuff like that? I'd be very curious about that. And we did have some additional comments in the Rogues Gallery, so I'm going to try to get back to them. Hollywood Jackson said, "No hand turkey tonight." No hand turkey, Hollywood. That was we thought about maybe doing that right on Thanksgiving, but Thanksgiving was kind of a different episode because we didn't have to do it live. It was a pre-recorded episode, and we went in a different direction. So no, still not going there with the hand turkey yet. So that sorry to disappoint you. And then Ronnie is in the house too. Did he say something before? Because I don't know the context. Oh, Ronnie, I think replying to Hollywood said, "Because you're a madman." There you go. There we go. It's good to see you, Ronnie. Thank you for being on the show earlier, by the way, too. We really appreciate that. And then Jacob said he just shared the stream out. We really appreciate that, Jacob. Thank you very much. We appreciate your support, and you have been one of those folks that have been really good about, sending, retweeting and all that kind of stuff. We really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, Ronnie, here you go. So Ronnie says, "My wallet says they need to slow the hell way down. Papa got a Sentinel." So Ronnie, did you get the HasLab Sentinel? That was pretty expensive, right? I can't remember what the exact price of that was. I'm curious. A lot of people were talking about the knee joints. If you have that one, the HasLab Sentinel, I'm very curious if you would have problems with the knee joints. That was something that a lot of people were reporting that it has difficulty standing. That the knee joints have to be like kind of tightened up or something like that, which a lot of people were very critical about. I'm curious if that was your experience, if you do indeed have one, if that's what your reference was. I think we're pretty much. Oh, Jacob did say thank you very much for the comment. I think in regards to a shirt, which I do think is awesome. As I mentioned, I have been collecting, I got the full line basically of I get confused. Is it vintage or retro? It's the retro line. That's one thing I do not like about what Hasbro's doing. Like with Star Wars right now, they have the retro line and the vintage line. Now, to me, vintage would be like the pre-1985 stuff, the original stuff, right? For the original films, some people will count Ewoks and droids. Some people won't talk about the Ewoks and droids cartoons. So, but basically for me, the cutoff is like 1985. That's vintage Star Wars. Now they have a vintage line, which basically all it is the card back looks like the old, it's in the style of the old Kenner, Star Wars action figures, but the figure itself is completely new with a new sculpting. Then they have the retro line. The retro line initially was reissues of different figures, right? Like they reissued basically original Star Wars figures from the original Star Wars film that some people call A New Hope. Then they also had some figures from Empire. Then they didn't do Return of the Jedi because they did Mandalorian. So they did the Mandalorian retro line, which was kind of neat because they did sculpts of the Mandalorian figures that looked like, like they had come out in the late 70s, early 80s. They were in that style. I actually did show that on a previous episode. If you look into our backlog, I actually showed that entire line. So I like it, but I think it can be confusing. But again, going back to Baby Yoda, they did have a Baby Yoda figure in that line, so I got the actual complete line of the retro Mandalorian figures. Which now I think they're actually coming out with vintage versions too. So I think that's already happened. Oh, Jane says that Ronnie actually did get her a Cara Dune figure. Jane, I'm curious which line it was. If it was the retro or if it was the vintage, because they did both with Cara Dune. I don't know which one is actually considered rarer, but I'd be curious. Of course, they did other things, like they did Funkos. I mean, there's other stuff that they did as well. Oh yeah, Ronnie was saying, yeah, you're referring to toy hunting. Yeah, it is kind of like sometimes it is overwhelming. The wallet thing, like I just mentioned, I have seen finally. It took me until basically 2 weeks ago. I finally am seeing more of that Wave 3 Marvel Legends. I did see Vision. I did see Ant-Man. I did see the Invisible Woman. I didn't buy them because I was buying groceries, so I didn't purchase them. Sometimes you got to make those choices, and yeah, it happens. It happens. That's another reasons why it's tough to collect new stuff, because new stuff is always coming out. If it's vintage, you can theoretically kind of make your choices. You know what's in the line and say, okay, I just want this. This is the figures I want. I got them. Now I'm happy. And you get into the new stuff, it just never ends because they keep on coming out and keep on coming out and keep on coming out. And it's that crazy rabbit hole that you get sucked down. And then Ronnie did mention that he did get the Sentinel, and he said it was an absolutely easy fix. I've heard that too, Ronnie, that it is an easy fix. But I think a lot of people, they're like, spending that kind of money, why should I have to make any kind of a fix? I think that's what some people were kind of trying to make the argument about. But yeah, I did hear that it's a easy fix as far as those joints on the Sentinel. But the price point, a lot of people, they were a little upset that there would be anything wrong with them. I have I can't even remember the name of him. I have what I think is actually the biggest Transformer. I don't know if I still have it because it would be at my parents' house, and I don't think they ever got rid of it. And I can't remember what he was called. He was one of the headmasters, and he was absolutely gigantic. And I think he's still bigger than Unicron, like the HasLab Unicron. I think he's still the biggest Transformer like they've ever officially made. And I wish I could remember his name, but he's gigantic. And he could stand fine. I mean, you know what I mean? Like he was meant to be played with. That's what I think is really interesting. Is so that's a criticism sometimes. Some of these things, like with HasLab, is some people are like, is this even at the price point? You would think it's not even really a toy anymore, right? Because it's more like a collectible. That's kind of I think an argument within the collecting community about those kinds of issues. Because what I got back as a kid was designed to be played with, and it was massive. Kind of like the USS Flag. I guess for GI Joe. I mean, as big as the flag is, and impressive as it is, and as crazy as it is, it was meant to be played with. Whereas I've heard people want they want HasLab to do a flag, a USS Flag, and that keeps being thrown out there. A lot of people say that will never happen, but my thing would be like, well, if it did happen, would it be anywhere close to what it was, or would it just be a massive display piece? That kind of a thing. Jane says that Ronnie, you would know about that Cara Dune figure, which version it was. So if you do know, I would be curious. I'd be curious to know. Jacob says, I have retro Darth Vader. It's with a hologram image and Princess Leia with an Ewok. That's interesting. So when you say retro Darth Vader, are you talking about the? I assume you're talking about the retro lines. So you're talking about the ones that were reissues of like the original Star Wars figures. Um, say it's with a hologram image. That's interesting. So it's retro Darth Vader, but with a hologram image. So is that one of the reissues, or is that something different? I'm curious, Jacob. You've got my curiosity piqued. There's so much stuff out there when it comes to Star Wars. There's so many lines, that came out. Basically, I think it kind of started out with Shadows of the Empire, right? Like when they started to make Star Wars toys again, because people forget that like for what 10 years or so, because I think it was like 1995, 96, something like that, that they started coming out with Star Wars figures again. But for the longest time, there were no basically for 10 years or more, there were no new Star Wars being made. And the last lines that they made of Star Wars figures weren't particularly, that they weren't very popular. Like droids and Ewoks, depending whether you count them or not. I do. A lot of people just didn't like them, so they kind of just went by the wayside. And for the longest time, it's kind of funny to think there were no Star Wars toys. Now it's like, almost impossible to think of going through a toy aisle, of action figures and there not being any Star Wars toys at all. But for a long time, that was the case. But they made a lot of different lines, and also that transition from Kenner to Hasbro and all that kind of stuff. They made a lot of different lines. So for anybody who might be just joining us right now, I do know that in the description, it said that there was going to be a Spider-Man live draw. We are still definitely honoring Spider-Man No Way Home, but Dave instead has chosen to do MJ. So that's what's going on right now. If you're a little confused about, hey, that doesn't look like Spider-Man. So that's what's going on right now here on the Retro Rogues Live. Pretty caught up here in the Rogues Gallery. I'm curious, Dave, are you collecting anything right now?
No, not. The thing that I keep coming back to, and I'm not currently collecting anything, is that I'm still kind of all about probably the trading cards a little bit too much. I saw that, for example, Neo Cards and Comics was actually talking about actually trying to track and see if there's going to be any kind of movement on Spider-Man cards because of the new movie being out.
Oh, okay.
So, that's kind of what I'm still kind of looking at. I'm still wanting to get stuff graded. And that's kind of where I'm still at. I just want to get again my, core stuff that I'm, going to keep nice. I just want to get that stuff graded. And I'm not really collecting or reading anything right now. And then part of that too is just necessitated by the fact that I'm so stupid busy with so many things going on at once, it seems like. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We do talk about the trading cards quite a bit. In fact, that's one of our most popular clips that we have on the YouTube, is where we were talking about the Marvel Impel card that have boomed quite a bit. But we do talk about trading cards, or have at least in the past talked about trading cards quite a bit on this particular channel. Jacob, he mentions that he's talking about the reissued figures with the retro Darth Vader. That's pretty interesting. I didn't realize the hologram stuff that they came with things like that. That's pretty cool. I know that some of those reissues and things like that, especially the ones that look like the classic figures, were really hard to get. A lot of people were really upset about that, because I think I want to say the first one, the New Hope figures were like Target exclusives, and then I think the Empire ones were like Walmart exclusives. And you see that, you're seeing that more and more, where the retail lines are having their own exclusive figures. It's always been there. That's always been a thing, by the way. That was even a thing when I was a kid. Toys R Us, actually, I felt like they were the ones who started it, because I remember Toys R Us used to have tons of exclusives, Toys R Us exclusives. That was a really common thing back in the day. So it's not a lot of people complain about it now, but it's been something that's been around for a long time. I think it's just that now, not having Toys R Us, it's kind of changed the landscape of collecting because there is no Toys R Us. Although we did cover in a previous episode that Macy's is supposed to be bringing Toys R Us back, and they're doing that store within a store concept, which I'm really curious about. I do have a Macy's within walking distance of my house. I don't know for sure if they're going to have a Toys R Us or not. I think it's still a couple weeks away before that rollout's supposed to happen. But I'm really curious if it happens. I'm going to go down there and I'm going to actually take my phone and I'm going to do some recording and stuff like that, and I might actually share it on the show because I want to follow up on that story because a lot of people are very skeptical of that concept, and that concept has a sort of dubious history. It never seems to quite work, the store within a store. Ironically, Toys R Us did the same thing. A lot of people probably don't remember this, but I do have some daughters, and they had a Claire's in Toys R Us. So for people that know what Claire's is, it's like a place that sells like cheap jewelry and stuff like that, like costume jewelry and things like that, little trinkets like purses and stuff that are really geared towards young girls, maybe like teenage girls, that kind of a thing. And Toys R Us actually did that. They had the Claire's and the way it worked was it was just like a section, right? It was like a couple aisles or whatever, and it was all Claire's stuff, and it was made like with their sort of colors and all that stuff. It was clearly like displays that you would see in a Claire's store. So strangely enough, Toys R Us itself actually did engage in that concept to some extent, but the difference was Claire's is still around as an independent store, and it still was around back then. In other words, you still had dedicated Claire stores. You still do to this day. That brand is still around, whereas there's still no dedicated Toys R Us stores. I think outside of Canada. I think in Canada they have like one or two or something like that. And yeah, Jacob, that's cool. He says he's going to post some pictures on Twitter later, and he'll tag me. So I appreciate that, Jacob. That's very, very cool about those Darth Vader figures. I did have another story that I wanted to talk about that I've kind of been sitting on. Again, usually we try to do stuff that's very topical. Like we try to do stuff that's happening, since the last show, or maybe happened like right after our last show. So we try to stay within that week time frame so that we're as current as possible. But a lot of times what happens because of that is some stories get kind of pushed aside. We're not able to get to it. We're going way over on time and that kind of stuff. And we had actually talked about this story before, but in a different context. So I'll explain. So I got this article here about Christopher Nolan. So this is from Variety, and this is actually dated November 18th. Like I said, this is an older story, but we actually were talking about this before. So it says why Christopher Nolan's 100 million World War II drama Oppenheimer could be the last of its kind. So we had talked about previously that Christopher Nolan is making this film about the Manhattan Project called Oppenheimer. And Dave and I think both kind of agreed. We were questioning some of the, we were questioning a little bit because this does seem in some ways to be, I would say almost like a vanity project, because the fact of the matter was they already did a film about the Manhattan Project, and it was a financial disaster. So anyway, the article says Christopher Nolan's next movie, Oppenheimer, a $100 million budgeted historical drama about physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer and the creation of the atomic bomb, could be considered one of an endangered species. It says these days it's rare for traditional studios to pump nine figures into a film that isn't inspired by popular toys, novels, or comic books. Even before the pandemic, audiences have been gravitating towards superheroes and science fiction spectacles and not much else. That reality has made it increasingly difficult for Hollywood to justify the economics of greenlighting expensive movies that aren't based on existing intellectual property. There are bigger risks only in investments for studios, but also in generating profits, spawning sequels, and leveraging consumer product riches. No matter how well people receive Nolan's film, it's unlikely that J. Robert Oppenheimer's face will adorn t shirts or lunchboxes. It says by backing Oppenheimer, Universal Pictures is making a bold bet that the right director can still get audience excited to visit cinemas for original content. The film, which isn't due into theaters until 2023, so that's still a ways off, will need to defy the odds to commercially successful. On top of its $100 million production budget, the studio will need to spend $100 million more to properly promote the film to global audiences. Because Nolan's contract guarantees that he receives first dollar grosses, an increasingly uncommon perk that grants the filmmaker a percentage of ticket sales, it will take 50 million to 60 million more to achieve profitability than it would take another film of similar scope. Consequently, insiders at rival studios estimate Oppenheimer will need to generate at least $400 million at the global box office in order to turn a profit. Now, I'm not going to read the entire article. You can definitely go check it out if you're interested to learn more about this. What I thought was interesting, it's interesting on multiple levels. First, but to me, it seems like what they're trying to kind of say is like this could be like kind of their last chance, their last gasp of countering all this genre stuff, right? Because they specifically talk about genre films, science fiction, superhero stuff, established properties, those kinds of things. Which I think those are not like mutually exclusive aspects. You can just as easily say, well, maybe you're tired of the Marvel films or something like that, which doesn't seem to be the case with all this hype for Spider-Man. But let's just say you're tired of the Marvel films. That's not to say that you can't create new superheroes, right? If that's your problem, that Hollywood isn't doing anything new, you can still do new things within genre. I think they really just don't like genre. That's really what it comes down to. Is a lot of folks in Hollywood, they don't like genre. They've never liked genre. They don't like superhero. They don't like science fiction. They might take or leave horror. Maybe sometimes on fantasy, depending on what it is. It's kind of like they always seem to want to attack genre movies and blame genre movies for the fact that their movies don't work. This article actually did talk about The Last Duel a little bit. It's actually mentioned in the article. It's one of the bombs that they mentioned recently, and we talked about that on this show in a previous episode, where the director was actually blaming millennials for the fact that the movie was such a bomb, right? And it was funny because he was defending the studio and saying the studio, I think, did really good by me because what had happened was the film had been greenlit under the old regime of Fox, and then Fox was bought by Disney, and there was some concern about whether Disney would market the film properly. And he was saying, hey, they did a great job. I blame millennials. And it's kind of funny because in a lot of ways, I think Dave and I both agreed it was like the complete opposite. The marketing of that film was terrible. I had barely heard of it. Dave had barely heard of it. Yeah. So to me, I think it's kind of even though it's a completely different argument, I think it kind of comes down to the same thing. It's almost like you're blaming the audience. It's like, why do you like all this genre stuff? Us Hollywood insiders, we hate that stuff. How come all you people like this stuff? Because we don't, It's just funny to me also that of all things, Oppenheimer would be the thing that you're going to that anybody would sort of put their hopes on, because again, I do kind of feel like it's like Nolan's vanity project. Like it's kind of like his reward. That's actually the way I see it. I think it's his reward for being such a successful, tried and true filmmaker, that they're basically saying, hey, we're going to trust you with this. You've done really good for us in the past. And even though it's a different studio, a lot of it's been done for Warner Brothers. Oppenheimer's going to be with Universal. But I think Hollywood in general is like saying, hey, this guy is a tried and true, great director. People know him. he's done genre. I mean, some people think he's done the best genre with his Batman films, right? That's arguable, but a lot of people think like The Dark Knight is the best, literally the best comic book movie ever made. There are people that believe that, and so he's done it. He's done it all, and so I feel like more like this is like sort of his reward. It's like every there's sort of like this stereotype that everybody in Hollywood has their sort of crazy idea. They would love to do this, they'd love to do that. And it's a vanity project. It's just something they've always wanted to do. It almost doesn't matter whether it makes money or not. They just do it. And I think Hollywood sometimes allows that. They say, hey, yeah, this person has got a proven track record. We're going to go with it, and we're going to let them make this movie. Of course, they do still want to make money. They do still want to make money, but they obviously they trust the filmmaker or the actor, whoever it is, and they say, we're going to let you do this, your little vanity project. I think it's kind of crazy when they try to make it like this is going to be the savior of real Hollywood almost. Like that's kind of the way I feel like this article is almost framed, and some people are kind of trying to make it like Oppenheimer's going to save Hollywood from all the evil genre people that have taken over that we're all sick of, because we're sick of genre. We're sick of Superman films. And then here we are, right? We're doing this for a very specific reason, because everybody's excited about Spider-Man. That's what everybody's excited about. I don't know if people are excited about Oppenheimer. My guess would be they're probably not. They might be excited about the new Christopher Nolan film, though, because he's just got that track record. It's like, oh, Christopher Nolan's coming out with something. I like his stuff. I'm going to go see it anyway, even if I don't care about the subject or know much about it, or I think it's kind of a silly premise for a movie, which is I fall in that last category. I know a lot about it, but I just feel like it's kind of a weird thing for a movie, especially since it's already been done and it was a horrible failure. So we have comments in the Rogues Gallery. Jackie's in the house. We haven't seen you, I think, in a little while. She says, hi, everyone. Jackie, it's good to see you. Thank you out there in Facebook land. Hollywood had a question for you, Dave. He says, is MJ in a bathing suit?
Yes.
There we go. There's the answer for you, Hollywood. Indeed, she is in a bathing suit. So, and again, we are doing this in honor of Spider-Man No Way Home, which we know there might be a lot of our audience that's actually out watching that right now, or maybe they're in line or they're waiting to watch it right now, because there's certainly a lot of people that are. I've seen quite a few people on my Twitter feed saying, I am off to go see, Spider-Man No Way Home. So, and I am definitely anticipating people's reaction to the film. I don't think I'm going to be able to see it this weekend. I think that's very unlikely that I'll be able to see it this weekend. I really want to, but I don't think I'm going to. So I'm going to have to, I'm definitely going to be seeing people's impressions and reviews and stuff like that. I'm going to try to keep it spoiler free as much as possible, but it seems like I get spoilers on Twitter whether I want them or not. That just happens, like without even looking for it. I'll see it. So, and I don't know if maybe I said earlier I'm concerned about spoilers. I don't know if I'm that concerned about spoilers, but I just want people to specifically direct them at me. I know they're going to happen, anyway, but it is what it is. Oh, Ronnie says he saw it. He says I saw it at 3:20. All right, Ronnie, can you tell us just like a thumbs up or thumbs down, or would you rather do maybe I got it. Actually, tell us a little bit more if we do like maybe a 5-point scale. 5 being like excellent, 1 being complete garbage. Obviously, you can put anything in the middle there. Maybe you could give us a rating there, Ronnie, since you saw it, what you thought of the film, because I'd be very curious. So yeah, that would be really good if you could tell us what you thought of the film, Ronnie. I'd be very, very curious. Okay, so you're saying a 10 out of 5. They're saying it's that good. If I understand the way you put that, because I said 5-point scale and you said a 10. Saying a 10 out of 5. So are you actually in? I've actually heard already somebody saying like this is the greatest comic book movie of all time. Are you actually in that category, Ronnie? I'm curious. A 10 out of 5. Wow. Okay. I don't think I would ever even say that for about anything. So, even my favorite movie. So that's interesting. 10 out of 5. Interesting. That definitely does increase my. The only bad thing about that, Ronnie, is that now when you increase my expectations, I've had that happen to me several times where my expectations like in the gutter, like my expectations were just super low, and because of that, I really enjoyed the movie far more than I probably should have. But I really enjoyed it because my expectations were so low. Usually, if I go in with my expectations really high for a movie, I always get burned, even if the movie's good, because my expectations are just so crazy. I end up being burned. I'm like, oh, I didn't like that at all. And Ronnie says Spider-Man, yes. So I guess what you're saying, it's the best Spider-Man movie of all time. Interesting. Wow, better than the original Spider-Man. Okay. Comic book movie, no. You said I have some bias. So um, that's interesting. Interesting. So um, as far as Spider-Man movies go, I would say the original one is probably my favorite. I know most people like Spider-Man 2, and I do like Spider-Man 2 a lot, but there's something about the original Spider-Man I really like. I think it's the ending. I've always really loved the ending of the original Spider-Man movie because I just love that. I wish I could remember the lines, but it's like, basically he's talking about how like it's almost like a curse to be Spider-Man. And that's how I feel Spider-Man is like, Spider-Man is not really accepted the way like other superheroes are. He's always got Jonah Jameson trying to get him arrested. Even the police sometimes are very wary of him. It's not like Batman, where his best friend is Commissioner Gordon. There's that's kind of the stuff to me that makes Spider-Man kind of unique and cool. And I think why I really like the original one, where it ends, where it's like, yeah, his life kind of sucks. Like he doesn't get the girl, you know what I mean? He has to keep doing the crime fighting. His uncle's dead, and yeah, it kind of sucks to be Spider-Man. That's kind of what I like. So when they deviate from that, and I think they deviated from that in every single film afterwards, although I never saw the Garfield versions. Um, they deviate from that at all, then I start to kind of lose it a little bit. So for me, that's probably my favorite one that I've seen. So I think that's interesting when you say that this is the best Spider-Man movie ever made. So I'm definitely anxious to see it. I'm definitely anxious to see it. And yes, I did ask. I absolutely did ask, Ronnie. So, but I'm curious to see it. I'm glad actually though that you said it's not the best comic book movie of all time. So you're keeping my expectations at least reasonable at this point, because there's a lot of comic book movies I like more than Spider-Man movies. I'll be completely honest about that. It's not that I don't like them. It's just that there's a lot of other superhero movies that I think did a better job than what they did in Spider-Man. Although again, I think the original Spider-Man is really good. And Spider-Man 2 I think is really good too. I absolutely hate Spider-Man 3. Thought it was complete trash, complete garbage. And I've enjoyed most of the Tom Holland movies. I've enjoyed all of them so far. But my favorite was Civil War, which technically wasn't his movie because that was actually technically a Captain America movie, right?
Yep.
That was actually my favorite appearance. That was my favorite version of the Tom Holland. That initial appearance I thought was great. I thought the performance was great. The way he was talking to me, that Spidey, just being sarcastic while he's fighting these guys, and the fact that he had good guys to fight, literally, because that's something that I'm very critical with the MCU. Is I do think that they have a real tough time with the villains. Outside of Loki and Thanos, I think the villains have been lackluster in the MCU. So, but yeah, I have enjoyed. I've enjoyed. I'm not a hater on the current incarnation of Spider-Man at all. I've enjoyed him for the most part. Sometimes a little too goofy, but I like him. Jacob mentioned you just posted those Star Wars action figures on Twitter and tagged me. I appreciate that, Jacob. I can actually probably even check that. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Oh, those are pretty cool. Those are cool. So those are like the power of the force line. I feel like I actually have to show these. Usually, I don't like to share stuff, and if something goes wonky here, the reason why is because I'm sharing my screen. But I actually want to share these because these are cool. These are from Jacob. He was just talking about some of his the figures that he in his collection. After I was talking about the Marvel Legend line, that is cool. So I didn't realize they had Grand Arkin on the card back. Now, granted, this is from the Power of the Force line. The other Grand Moff Tarkin I know that's very sought after is the one that came with the Star Wars board game, which I actually have an original version of that board game. We used to play it when I was a kid. And a lot of people were upset about that because, that was like the new figure. And they only came out with him in the board game. So I didn't realize that they had a carded version in the Power of the Force line. That's very cool. And then this is really awesome that Darth Vader with the helmet off. That is very cool. And I can the hologram you're talking about. I forgot about those. I remember that now. I don't have any of those figures that came with the hologram. That's really cool. So, and then that was the Princess Leia talking about with Wicket, which I really dig. I liked the Ewoks as a kid. I'm not going to sit here and hate on the Ewoks now because I'm a bitter old man, which I am a bitter old man, but I don't hate the Ewoks. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, I hate the Ewoks. They're so stupid. I loved the Ewoks when I was a kid. Do I think they're a little more silly now that I'm an adult? Yes, but I still love them. They're still great. And Wicket was the best. And, I like Leia's outfit and when she's hanging out with the Ewoks. And that's the other Darth Vader you were talking about, huh? The sort of hologram Darth Vader. That's pretty neat. That is a cool looking figure. Definitely going to give that a like and retweet that one out, Jacob. That is very, very cool. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. You actually helped add a little more content to the show by doing that. So I appreciate that a lot. Let's get the image back up there. Let's see. I did have some sort of backup stuff that I just thought was interesting. We have been talking about Spider-Man No Way Home. So I do want to talk about that a little bit. Let's see here. I just need to find the link that I have. Well, it's not a link. It's just actually just a headline there. This is from the Dirt. This is an older one too. This was trending last week, and I was going to bring it up, but we had so much content, thanks actually to Ronnie being on the show, and we had so much to talk about it and get to this. But it says, Tom Holland says his Spider-Man would beat up Hugh Jackman's old man Wolverine. That is a fun and provocative headline, and what I think is fun about it is that is the kind of stuff that I think as fans we love to debate about. Who would win? In a fight, Spider-Man or Wolverine? But this actually even goes beyond that because it's like, okay, specifically, the current MCU Spider-Man versus the Hugh Jackman Wolverine. Who would win in a fight? And then I think even more specifically in this one, they were talking about the Logan version, which I still haven't seen Logan. I totally need to see it. The Logan
version. That's a shame, Eric. That's a great movie.
I know you've told me that. In fact, that keeps on my mind that I need to see it because you highly recommended it. And so that goes even more into it where it's like, okay, so we're talking about, current MCU Spider-Man versus the Logan version of Wolverine. And then if you read the article, it's kind of funny because they actually do make the distinction in the article about like Wolverine origins, Wolverine, like Wolverine, like at the time of his game versus, Logan, and which one would win. And the funny thing is, if you actually read the actual article, Tom Holland actually eventually he's like, hey, I was joking about the old man thing. He actually says, no, Wolverine would win. And he's actually real definitive about it because he says the reason Wolverine would win is because Wolverine will kill people and Spider-Man won't. And I thought that was really kind of weird that he would say that because Isn't that true of every single person that Spider-Man faces that Spider-Man doesn't kill, but his opponent will? So is that really this, the great advantage that is going to make Wolverine be Spider-Man? It's the fact that Spider-Man doesn't kill, but Wolverine is willing to go that extra mile because all the villains are willing to go that extra mile. You know, that's kind of what makes them villains. It's one of the reasons I was never a huge fan of Wolverine up until the films because he was he was too much of an anti-hero. That's chic now. It's cool now. But me growing up, I liked heroes, and so my heroes didn't kill. That was a big thing. Me growing up. But I just think that's kind of funny because that was eventually his argument that Wolverine would win because Wolverine's willing to kill and Spider-Man isn't. I'm curious if you folks out there have any thoughts on that kind of a matchup, because that's the kind of fun stuff to talk about, when it comes to fandom and things like that. Is who would win, between Spider-Man and Wolverine, and you could do different versions if you want, like the comic version. Of course, even if you do the comic version, you have to say like probably what era, what I mean, what era of Spider-Man are we talking about? Or you could talk about like the different cartoon versions, that kind of a thing. The different film versions, like you could actually have the different Spider-Mans fight each other, and you could have all sorts of opinions on which Spider-Man would win, right? I mean, because they're all kind of different, so they're kind of different. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. It's is it Reet Underwood? He says Logan is amazing. Yeah, that Dave has told me that a bazillion times, that Logan is amazing. And what happened was it was one of those movies that got away from me when it was in the theater. I like to go see films in the theater. And like I have kids and I try to go to movies with my kids, and that didn't seem like that was a good fit for the kids. Then it sort of got away from me. And for the longest time, I wasn't really available anywhere. I think now it landed on Hulu eventually. Like it's been a while now that it landed on Hulu. But in between that time, we Picard. So after reviewing Picard, I've been taking quite a break from anything involving Patrick Stewart. I do occasionally try to watch a TNG, Star Trek: The Next Generation show, especially if it's not centered on Picard.
I don't see how you even watch that, Eric. I can't watch Next Generation anymore.
I know we talk about that all the time. That Dave can't even watch. He can't even watch TNG anymore. I will still occasionally watch TNG, especially if it's a non-Picard centered episode. I'll watch some TNG, but it's all for me. So it's actually kind of what's happened with Logan. Is like it kind of got away from me. Now that it's like available, like I have Hulu, so I could watch it if I wanted to. Kind of like, do I really want to though? Isn't Patrick Stewart in it? I don't know if I really want to watch this. So it's kind of weird for me anyway. Regarding the sketch, Dave, Hollywood says it's looking good. Woohoo!
Thank you, Hollywood.
and thank you, Rhett, because it's like you said, it's like Brett without the B, so Rhett Underwood. Thank you. Yeah, sometimes I do butcher names. I butcher names all the time, unfortunately. All the time. All right.
Yeah, I think we're making some decent time on this. We'll see, but I think it's coming along pretty quick, actually, I think.
Yeah, and it's coming along very well. I definitely agree with Hollywood. It's coming along very, very well. Let's see. I think I had another little backup. There we go. This is another one of those articles that I had meant to talk about when it was more topical, but it was, we actually had too much going on and I didn't get to it. But I thought this would be interesting for some people. This says last updated 10 days ago, so it doesn't give me the date. I know it's old. As Kevin Feige confirms Daredevil casting in the MCU and fans will be pumped. The MCU found its man without fear. It says over the years, certain actors have grown to become synonymous with the Marvel character they're hired to play. Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark. Chris Evans has claimed the fabric of Steve Rogers. Some roles can get recast, like Edward Norton handing Hulk to Marv Ruffalo, or John Terrence Howard, which, by the way, you could question either of those casting choices. But may lay claim to their character, but many lay claim to their character, and that's final. This is how many MCU fans feel about Charlie Cox's portrayal of the blind attorney Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil. There have been calls to bring Cox over to the MCU and allow him to play the man without fear, and it seems like Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige has been listening. The man behind the machine that is the MCU sat down with Cineblend recently and fielded out questions about Daredevil and the character's potential in the MCU now that his Netflix show has run its course. It'd be a shame not to feature Daredevil in either a Marvel feature or a Disney Plus show, and we asked Feige what he thought about Charlie Cox being able to stay in the part. To our surprise, the usually convert Kevin Feige confirmed the news that so many fans will want to hear when he told Comcast, quote, "If you were to see Daredevil in upcoming things, Charlie Cox, yes, would be the actor playing Daredevil. Where we see that, how we see that, when we see that, remains to be seen." So that's very interesting for folks that maybe are not familiar with, the actor's name. That's the actor who portrayed Daredevil in the Netflix show. Now, I have to say, I'm not super surprised by this. I think the thing that's most surprising is most people know that Kevin Feige is usually kind of secretive. Like, he's definitely one of those guys. It's like, oh, no spoilers, no leaks, all that kind of stuff. It seems like sometimes I think sometimes I think it's almost too much. Like, because it's like you don't even know the plot of the freaking movie. But he seems to be tight-lipped. So I am surprised maybe that he would say it, but I'm not surprised that that's happening, I guess is the way to put it. Because if you're familiar with, the Netflix shows, or particularly season 1 of Daredevil, okay, because that's the one that I watched all the way through. I didn't really get into a lot of the other stuff. I don't think I even watched the second season of Daredevil, but I liked the first season. I watched it. The first season, they very clearly made it that this was part of MCU. They were dealing with the aftermath of the alien invasion, and they talked about it, they referenced it, and it was very clear in my mind that the Netflix shows were a part of the MCU. I think what happened was later on, they started to get away from that. I don't know for sure because I didn't really watch those shows, but I can tell you, because I watched the first season, I know for a fact they made that very evident that, New York was dealing with the aftermath of the alien invasion that we saw in Avengers. So to me, it doesn't surprise me very much that he would be Daredevil. It makes a lot of sense. Rhett, you asked if speaking of Daredevil, have you seen the latest episode of Hawkeye? I have not. Dave, have you been checking out Hawkeye? Dave, you're muted, I think.
Sorry, everyone. When I start trying to do this drawing stuff, I get totally absorbed. So I have been watching Hawkeye. It's a great show. I am really, really enjoying it. I have not seen the latest episode yet, unfortunately, but I do know that there's a big thing that happens in it. But let's avoid spoilers. So,
yeah, I haven't seen it. I don't know if I am. I'll be honest. I don't know if I'm going to watch it or not. Now, Dave just said that he really liked it, so maybe just based on his recommendation, I'll check it out. I'd be curious, anyone else in the Rogues Gallery, if you have an opinion one way or other about High, and if you've been watching it, what you think of it, or if you haven't been watching it, I'd be curious, why that is. Jane mentions Daredevil was one of her favorite Netflix shows, and like I said, I really did enjoy that first season, and I don't know why I kind of stopped after that because I really didn't check out the other ones. Like, I know they did at least one more season of Daredevil, and then, they started introducing all the other characters, and then they kind of all banded together, and I'm aware of all that stuff. Just for whatever reasons, I never got to watching them. So
The
because
second season is really, really good, Eric, and the third season is absolutely incredible
yeah, I
of
really liked the
Daredevil.
first season. I mean, I did like the first season. I enjoyed the show. For some whatever reason, I can't even remember why on that one I didn't get back to it. And maybe I just got into something else. Something else popped along, and I was more into that, and I just didn't continue with the Netflix stuff. Um, but I did think he did a great job in that first season, so I can totally see him being brought back for the MCU quote unquote movies and television shows because again, some people kind of qualify the Netflix stuff as something that, even I think that was the original idea. Originally, I think it was kind of like Shield, right? Shield was definitely supposed to be part of the original continuity. That was the way it was pitched. That's the way it started out. And then I think things got weird with Shield, and now it's like, is Shield part of MCU? Is it not? But originally it was. I know that's another one that I know. Originally, it was supposed to be part of the MCU. They were trying to keep everything together, which I really like because DC doesn't do that, and I think that confuses the audience a lot when you have all these different versions of the character on different shows, and there's like a TV Flash, now there's a movie Flash, and people are like, well, wait a second, I don't quite understand. Especially casual fans, I think a lot of them don't get it. They're like kind of like scratching their head, like I don't understand this. So um, I always thought Marvel did a better job with that, but things have changed definitely with Disney and all that kind of stuff, and it's changing. Um, let's see. Jacob's enjoying the drawing. She says she's very beautiful and sexy looking. Awesome job you're doing with her.
Oh, thank you.
Micah says I love Hawkeye. I hope we can watch the latest after Dave is done. So.
There you go.
uh, Brett says, "Yeah, Brett. I'm just curious what you think because I don't think you actually said what you thought of the show. You just asked if anybody had actually seen it, and I'm just curious what your opinion of the show is. You know, um, Ronnie says I'm waiting for the season finale next week. I'll be up that morning at 2 a.m. So I guess Ronnie, you're saying you like it, that you like it. Oh, and Rhett did say that he agrees with you, Dave. That's a good show. All right, there's his opinion. Cool.
Yeah, and like I said, the second season of Daredevil is fantastic, and the third season is also really, really great. I really, really enjoyed. I enjoyed all of the Netflix Marvel stuff for the most part. I even enjoyed Iron Fist. I know some people did not like Iron Fist, but there's a lot of things about Iron Fist that I found that I liked. Um, but all the Netflix stuff, I really enjoyed. I thought it was all really good. So
Yeah, I never went beyond that first season. I just again I don't know exactly why. I don't know why. Micah says looks like you're using a picture of her for your reference for your drawing there, Dave. Uh, Rhett does say that Shield did get weird. Yeah, I've Shield was one of those shows that I would occasionally go and watch, and I would be lost every time I watched it because it seemed like everything changed, and I was like, I don't understand what's going on. It's one of those shows I think you just had to watch every single episode, which I guess is real common these days. I guess there is something to be said. Like everybody wants to be like it feels like now the cool thing is to be serialized. Everything has to be serialized as opposed to being episodic, where each episode is a self-contained story. Um, I kind of like what the Mandalorian did, because I've said that they did kind of a hybrid, where they had an overarching story, but they also had standalone episodes, where there would be like maybe one thing that happened in the episode that was going to be relevant later, but you could just watch the episode and enjoy it. You know, so but a lot of shows they don't do that anymore. Everything has to, like I said, everything seems like it has to be serious. With Shield, I would get completely lost and be like, I have no idea what's going on it. I'd try to watch an episode, and be like, I have no clue what's going on. It's like, why is this person doing this? Why are they in space? I was just like, what's going on? I'm so confused. Ronnie says it was studio politics that caused the shows to sway away from the MCU. Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Ronnie. I think that's exactly right. And I think also a lot of that had to do with the acquisition by Disney. It's part of the studio politics, right? And probably not wanting to deal with Netflix, because Netflix and Disney Plus are the main competitors in the streaming wars. Few people would deny that Netflix. I mean, Netflix itself has acknowledged that Disney Plus is the one platform we're concerned about. That other, because Netflix, when you look at options, it's way above everybody else, even above Disney Plus. But Disney Plus is like getting more and more competitive with them. So yeah, I think a lot of it was studio politics. Rhett says he loved all the Netflix as well, and he loved the freeform Marvel as well. Freeform Marvel. Dave, do you know what freeform Marvel is?
I think he's just talking about the Marvel that was unconnected to things, but Brett will have to clarify that comment because I'm not exactly sure what he means. I don't think freeform is like a platform but I could be wrong.
I think there might actually be a platform called Freeform, but I don't think it involves Marvel. So
yeah, I don't. That's what I'm saying. It might be. I don't know. I'm a little lost on that comment. But that doesn't mean anything. I can get lost really easily. So,
well, I think there's a lot of people that enjoyed the Netflix stuff. But again, going back to Ronnie's comment, I do think that it has to do with studio politics. A lot of it does, that rift, if you will, because I know originally it was supposed to be all together. Rhett clarifies freeform, so Cloak and Dagger. I am familiar with Cloak and Dagger.
Okay.
I have not watched it. So, have you watched Cloak and Dagger, Dave?
I have not, but I was correct. He's talking about, basically Marvel, where it doesn't have to always be totally connected to everything. So I was kind of right about that, but I have not seen Cloak and Dagger, unfortunately.
Runaways, it's another one that I'm familiar with, but I haven't watched.
I've heard lots of great things about Runaways, and I have wanted to watch Runaways, but it just unfortunately has not worked out. So.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those things, but I haven't gotten into them. It's just I've been trying to get into more independent stuff lately, and that's also been sort of a format change for the show. Dave and I have been working on a project along with my partner Robert McVeigh on like a brand new story, brand new character, and we plan to actually be revealing a lot of that stuff here on the show. That's one of the reasons that we're doing. Actually, that's one of the reasons Dave is doing a live drawing right now, is to get people used to seeing like original art on the show and that being more showcased. So as a result, I haven't been really going back and watching a lot of the stuff that I do have access to. Like I have the Disney 3-pack. Like I get Disney Plus, I get Hulu, ESPN Plus, which by the way, ESPN Plus is trash, absolute trash. Really hate the way that app is set up. But so I have access to a lot of stuff. I have Flex, so I have access to a lot of stuff. I just haven't been watching a lot of it. I've talked about it on the show. I think the streaming platform that I use the most is Pluto TV, and that's a free thing, and it's free. And I think part of it is I don't like to choose sometimes like particular episode. Like I know I like a show or something, and so like a bar restaurant on Pluto TV, or I'll go to like the AMC channel on Pluto TV, and I'll just watch whatever they have on, and that way I don't have to sit there and go through like 1,000 different things that I have to choose, because I'm not good at that. I've tried to use the Netflix. I know Netflix has actually tried to address that. They've tried to address people like me that don't really like to necessarily choose what they're going to watch all the time. And they have like this sort of, like shuffle thing where you can like say, hey, based on what I watch, Netflix, and what I like, recommend something to me. And of course, what do they recommend to me? Whatever's popular on Netflix. So I know that it's just a scam because I never get like, oh, this is something that, kind of obscure or whatever that I would actually like, which it would be really cool if it did that, if it actually showed you stuff you normally didn't see, but they know based on this, on your viewing history, oh, he would probably like this. No, it's always just something that's like in the top 10 most popular Netflix. Oh, watch this, so. Jane says she always looked forward to the Netflix shows. Yeah, I know they definitely had an audience. That there's definitely people that really enjoyed them, and I think there's people that want to see those characters come back. And the part of what that was that I was talking about earlier was that Kevin Feige confirming that at least Daredevil, he intends to bring him back 100%. Although he wouldn't say in what context. So I don't know if a Disney Plus show, movie, who knows. And then Hollywood also says he's also a Pluto and Stir guy. Yeah, Stir TV we've talked about on this channel a few times. Stir has some good stuff. Like they have Comet, which is a really cool channel that a lot of people like myself can get over the air. But depending where you live, you might be able to get over the air on the antenna. Yeah, I always like talking about Comet because Comet has some really cool stuff like Sliders, Quantum Leap. They have the Ron Moore Battlestar Galactica. Stir has a lot of other stuff too, so Stir is another good one because it's free. And Jacob on that tangent also says I use Tubi, and most of it's free too. Yeah, Tubi's excellent. Tubi has a lot of interesting stuff on it. It has a lot of junk on it, but Tubi actually has, interestingly enough, it has a lot of these like old DC cartoons and stuff like that, which are interesting. Some of which I think are not even on HBO Max, which I always wonder, how does that work? How come it's on Tubi, but it's not on HBO Max? But HBO Max is a little bit weird sometimes about the DC content, so I don't know. But yeah, Tubi has some interesting stuff on it. I do use Tubi quite a bit. Yeah, Jane says Tubi is her favorite. So yeah, I like Tubi. I do watch Tubi quite a bit. I think I use the on-demand Tubi a lot more because I think Tubi does have channels as well. Like you can watch the news and things like that on Tubi, but I do use the on-demand on that one. Regarding your drawing, Hollywood has a comment, Dave. He says, "Nice work, Dave."
Thanks. I'm almost done with it here. I decided to put a little bit of rim light on it. I felt like it needed just a little bit extra to pull it together here.
Yeah, I think it's definitely looking very, very good. Jane says it's looking great.
Thank you.
I always tell myself that I need to take more screenshots while Dave is drawing so that I have stuff available for like our, for, gosh, what do they even call them? The little image that pops up before you press the video, on YouTube and things like that. What is it again?
The preview image, just the preview image.
I thought there was another term for it, but I know there's one that YouTube uses, and I always forget what it is. But yeah, the preview image. And I always say I need to take more pictures when you're doing this, but then I always forget. I always freaking forget. So, thumbnail. There you go. Thanks, Ronnie. That's what they call it, a thumbnail. See, the Rogues Gallery always keeps me honest. Yep, that's the term I was thinking about, a thumbnail. Because what happens is the thumbnail originally is generic. Just take the logo and that's the thumbnail. And I always try to change it, after the show. But I don't necessarily want to show Dave's completed art because then I feel like it might take some of the incentive away from people to watch him drawing it. That's just the way my mind works. So I try to do something like progress and put it up there, so that at least people get an idea, So, but yep, that's the term. Ronnie says about your drawing, Dave. He says that's awesome.
Thank you. I think that's going to get it, everybody, for better or worse. So
Well, I dig it. Definitely dig it. I think it looks awesome. I do like how you still kept in she's got this the Spider-Man's outfit in her hand. I like that.
yeah, and then I did, of course, the Spider-Man webs across her bathing suit too. So
Yeah, I dig it. I think it came out really, really well.
cool
I
deal.
definitely dig it. Um, Jacob says, "I hope Gap Stargate watches the replay. He missed out on a great stream. Yeah, I miss Gap too, Jacob. And Gap does tell us quite a bit. He has reached out to us several times, even when he's been live in the chat, that he tends to watch the replay more. Um,
Yeah,
I think he's out there on. I think he's out there on the East Coast, and I think he likes to get to bed a little bit early or something like that. So, but yeah, he mentions that quite a bit, that he actually will watch us on the replay. But yeah, I miss Gap too, Jacob. So he's always got some good comments.
very cool, very cool.
Yeah, I
All
think it
right,
came
let's
out.
see.
I think it came out really well, Dave.
Thanks. It's weird too because I was telling Eric I've been so busy, and even though art is my occupation, it's so funny because there are periods of time where I don't really get much of a chance to draw. So this is actually the first chance I've had to draw really in any kind of focused manner. I think in probably about 2 weeks because I didn't draw on. Did I? I didn't draw on last week's episode. No, did I draw on last week's episode?
No, because we had a guest.
No. Yeah. So I didn't draw last week, and then I don't think I drew the week before either because the Janimal was on. So that's what I'm saying. It's been a good solid 2 weeks since I've actually drawn anything. So I was actually feeling kind of rusty tonight. So, but hope it's not. I think it turned out okay.
No, I think it
So,
turned out excellent. I think it looks really,
oh,
really
thanks.
good. I am
Drawing women for me is always a little nerve wracking. So,
really.
yep,
Is,
always is, always is.
do you think there's a reason for that?
I don't know. I don't know.
um, you do a good job. I mean, we've talked about red skirts on this show before, and I'm a red skirts fan. Um, so I definitely think you do a good job at it.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Cool. All right. Unless we have any other comments in the Rogues Gallery, or if you have anything else you want to cover, Eric, I think that might be good.
Yeah, I think I'm good on my side. So.
All right. Cool. All right. So I want to thank all of you for hopefully watching. We're not gonna put this out as an audio show, but just because it's mostly drawing. But and the well, anyhow, I feel like the shows where we're drawing don't really work as an audio show for obvious reasons. But anyhow, I want to thank you for hopefully watching this episode of the Retro Rogues Live. Again, my name is Dave Beatty. I've been one of your hosts. If you're curious to see what occupies a lot of my time, besides obviously my co-hosting duties here on the Retro Rogues Live, you can definitely check out my t-shirt company. It's called KirbyTees.com. You can check it out online at KIRBYTS.com. Again, KIRBYTS.com. We got a lot of fun things over there, such as the Brains Are Magic shirt by Sarah Aerosmith. We also have the Skeletor t-shirt, which is a collaboration between myself and the Janimal, who was actually on 2 episodes ago. I encourage you to check out the replay of that episode. Everyone had a lot of fun with it. But yeah, a lot of fun stuff on there, as well as the Retro Rogues Live t-shirts. We would like to encourage you to go over there, check out what's going on, and consider purchasing a Retro Rogues Live t-shirt and supporting what we do here on the show. We greatly appreciate your support. But enough about that. I want to thank, as always, my great co-host, Mr. Eric Alexander, for being on here and basically driving the ship while I sit here and draw for your amusement. Eric, please tell the folks hopefully watching at home where they can learn more about you on the interwebs.
Well, I'm most active on Twitter. You can find me there at BassGod14 at BASSGOD14. That's also the official YouTube. It's also the official Twitch. So if you make comments on any of those platforms, more likely than not, I'll be the one responding to you. My DMs are always wide open on Twitter. I love getting suggestions from folks in the Rogues Gallery about stuff that we should cover during the episode. So please let me know. Got rumors, you got news, pop culture news, streaming wars, collectors stuff. That's the kind of stuff we want to talk about, and of course, independent stuff. That is something that we want to focus more on is independent creators, and that stuff is harder to find. So let me know if you have something you want us to cover here on the show, or maybe even someone we could invite as a guest or something like that, because we definitely want to address that kind of stuff. Jacob said regarding your drawing there, Dave said totally wicked, totally wicked. So appreciate that, Jacob. Jane said she enjoyed the show. Hollywood says great show, guys. Bye, everyone. And Jacob also says great, 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 guys, and thanks for the stream. And we appreciate that. And with that, we'll give Jacob the last word.